Today's demo is about making an acrylic skin collage painting. Now, what does that mean? I saw this technique a while back. I wanted to try it for myself, and it's really an interesting technique to work with, and it's kind of fun, and it's a little freeing, which as most of my work is pretty loose. So what I'm going to do is walk you through this. I will say one thing I learned when I made this video was, as you'll see when I show you, but when I transfer the skin from the plastic that onto the board that we're going to be actually painting on, I didn't give it enough time to dry. So some of the paint did not transfer or pull up or convert to the skin as I would have liked it to. But in the end, it worked out okay because I really liked the work that came out of it, and I just went with it basically. And that's some of those things that you kind of have to do when you're making art, is making the best of some situations that maybe you didn't plan for or didn't plan well enough for. And in this case, I was just impatient, and I didn't let the piece dry long enough before I transferred it. So that being said, let's get started, and I'll show you this technique. I grab a standard sheet protector from Office Depot, and this will be the piece that I'm going to paint on. I lay it on top of my sketchbook. Painting with soft body acrylics, and I'm just going to brush those on really loose. Again, I'm going for a really immediate effect, so I'm going to build up my acrylics. You're painting backwards essentially, so if you've ever painted on glass, same concept. So the colors that are going to be on the most forefront are the first ones you lay down. So I'm going through and I'm just going to layer my colors on top of each other. Right now I'm just trying to retain some of those brush strokes that I like. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, I did not give this enough time to dry, so some of these are going to be lost as I peel it off a little bit later in the demonstration. Of the paint continues, and as you can see when you flip it over, the first marks that I made are the ones that show up in the front. And right now I'm liking a lot of what I'm seeing, but again I lose that because I didn't give it enough time to dry. But a majority of it did make it down, as you'll see when I get ready to transfer this. I'm adding a few extra layers of paint just to give myself enough of a skin to hold on to when I start to peel it back. And now I'm putting on the matte medium, and that will give me that final layer that I'll need. I use a hairdryer to dry in between the paint layers to increase the drying time. I take an X-Acto blade to start to peel it back from the plastic, and as you can see I just work my way around it and start pulling it back slowly, and it's starting to come away and starting to form that skin, that acrylic skin that we talked about. Now you can see some of the paint strokes are not pulling away as I would like them to, and I attribute this to not giving it enough drying time. But as you can see, again, here we have a very flexible plastic acrylic skin that is now formed, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to place it on top of my wood panel, and then I'll start using matte medium to apply that and to adhere it down to that surface. And for me, this is where the fun begins, is I'm going to start actually painting traditionally back into this piece and bringing out the forms and the color and the shapes. So the next portion of this demonstration will be me doing those things, establishing some color, and just start to play a little bit. And then I'll go back and forth and start collaging back in some of that skin that I pulled off of the plastic sheet that I removed earlier when I transferred this image down. I'm now working with some high flow acrylics that I filled in to some empty paint marker receptacles that I had. Now I am starting to take some of those pieces of excess skin that I mentioned earlier, the acrylic skin, and I'm using those as collage elements into the piece, which is fun because, you know, we take pieces of paper and we paint on them and we then cut them up and use them as collage elements. And here I'm actually just using the actual paint itself that's dried on that plastic and informed a skin that we can then play around with and use that in our composition. And this brings us to the end of our demo. Thanks for watching.